Although any time of year is a great time to cook on cast iron, one of my favorite times of year is in the fall. There's something about the flavor when you cook on cast iron that brings like bacon and eggs alive, or one of my favorites for this time of year is cast iron cornbread. It's just when you cook cornbread in a cast iron, it's got that crust on bottom. It's just got a flavor that you can't replicate any other way. But before you cook on cast iron, there's one simple step you have to do, and that's season the pans. Now I've got a couple of pans here. One has been in storage for a while and it's pretty gunky. It's got a bunch of dust and dirt on it. It's even got some old grease on the bottom. And then I've got another one that's just right out of the box, a brand new pan. Now our approach to seasoning these pans are going to be a little bit different, but there's one thing that's going to be in common, and we'll share that in just a minute. Now you may ask yourself, why should I season my cast iron pans? And the reason is pretty simple. One of the things, when you season them, it will help protect the metal long term. And another thing that it does when you season them, it adds a little bit of non-stick properties to the cast iron. So as you use it over and over, and the pans become more and more seasoned as they get used over time, they start to perform better and better each time you use them. Now, the cool thing about cast iron is they're really energy efficient. You know, with a lesser pan, when you put it on the stove, it'll heat up, but it loses heat really quick. These cast iron pans, the reason why they're so good and they're so versatile for cooking, whether we're going to fry stuff in them or bake cornbread in it, is that they hold heat a lot more efficiently than just standard lesser quality pans. But again, we have to season them from day one. So with this used pan, my approach is going to be pretty simple. I'm going to take it over to the sink behind me. All I'm going to do is use really hot soapy water and a Brillo pad and just scrub it really as best I can. Now you'll hear some people talk about you shouldn't put soap and water on a cast iron pan, and that's true after they've been seasoned. But when we're trying to refurbish it, you know, we're going to want to try to get all the dirt and grime we can off of it so that season will take properly. And then once we've got it out of the soap and water, all I'm going to do is set it on the cook stove, turn the cook stove on medium heat, set it on the cook stove, let the pan heat up to evaporate all the water off of it before we go to the next step. Once I've let this clean pan set on top of the stove top for a few minutes and let all the water dry off, before I take it off, I'm going to make sure it's cooled down so I can handle it. And this one obviously has. But before I go to the next step, I'm just going to take a paper towel and wipe it down good just to make sure I got everything off of it. And so I can see here that a little bit of metal showing. This pan has obviously lost its seasoning, but we're going to take care of that with our next step. Now, some people will talk about using vegetable oil or some kind of liquid oil to put on these pans. I prefer shortening for no particular reason. It's just the way I was taught, and so that's what I use. And I'm just going to reach in here and get it on a paper towel, and then I'm going to rub it in and just try to really press down a little bit and get it in all the cracks and crevices of these pans. And when you're putting this shortening on these pans, just don't be stingy with it. Just be real liberal application. Put it on both the inside and the outside of the pan. And I don't know why I use circular motions. I guess when I learned to wax cars, kind of the old Karate Kid, wax on, wax off kind of thing, I'll just put kind of circular motion all over it just to make sure I've got it covered good. And we're going to do this both to this old pan. Make sure you include the handle, by the way. We're going to do this to both this old pan, and we're going to do the exact same thing to this new pan. This new pan, again, it's in a little better shape. It hasn't been sitting out in the weather, and it's obviously just right out of the box, but we might not have to work nearly as hard on that. But again, I'm just going to get it inside, outside, every edge, all the metal. We're going to put this shortening on and make sure it rubs in good. And so when we're done, we've got this real shiny patina of a shortening or grease on these pans. And now the last step, and I've already been one step ahead. The last step we're going to do is we've got to put these things in the oven and let them kind of cook for about an hour. And so I've got the oven set to 350 degrees, the same temperature you use to bake a cake or cornbread or something like that. And I'm going to place both these pans in the oven and let them heat up for about an hour, maybe 2 hours. But here's the important thing. Make sure you put them upside down when you put them in the oven. And so these things are going to go in the oven. So I'm going to set the self timer on the oven, let them cook for an hour or two. Then after that, I'm just going to let them cool off. And I'm not going to check them maybe till in the morning. But once I pull them out of the oven, they've got that first proper seasoning, and they're ready to use and ready to make some great dishes.